Okay, welcome everyone to the Monday, June 7th, 2021 meeting of the Carver School Committee. Welcome to everyone here and everyone at home. If everyone would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd just like to remind everybody this meeting is being held virtually in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The meeting is also taking place in public at Town Hall and live over Area 58.
Excellent. Do we have, it looks like Tom Pinto is here from the EAPC.
Tom is here. Just give me a second. Let me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just wait 1 second. It's going to make you. Yep, Tom, you should be able to turn your video on, I think.
Okay.
If you can't, let me check.
Can you see me?
Yep, we can.
Hey, everybody. I'll be brief. Good evening, everyone. It's been a long school year, and I want to thank everyone for all the work that.
Oh, sort of like Tammy last time.
You're frozen.
Oh.
on us,
Hey, Tom, you froze up on us. Tom, maybe it might, yeah, it might be better if you turn your video off, Tom.
Hello?
All right, Tom, now we can hear you. Let's see.
So should I start over again? Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Well, maybe you want to start over again, yeah. All right, maybe not.
Recording in progress.
Hello?
Hello, Tom. We hear you saying hello. Do you hear us?
Hello, Tom.
I know it's like, it reminds me
All
of
right, do you want to,
Major Tom.
Tom, why don't we hold for a second? I don't know if you can maybe log off and try to sign back in, or I can bring you in, and we can go to Jay Peters for student council update. Does that work okay for everybody, Stephanie?
Excellent, yep.
It's Jay, let me.
I can see Jay is
Jay, you
here.
should be able to turn on your video. So we're excited to have Jay with us here this evening representing Carver High School Student Council. I think this is Jay's first time. So Jay, why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself, and then you can give us the update. That'd be great.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jay Peters, as you know. Just wanted to give a few updates from the Student Council. Hope everyone had a nice weekend and stayed cool.
Uh-oh.
I think it might be us.
Oh, he muted himself. Jay, you're muted.
Microphone's not ready.
There you
That
are.
would be President Haley Kaczynski.
Hey Jay, we lost you for a second.
It's our internet. I think this is
Okay.
this is
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. So as I was saying, Student Council just wanted to thank you to our seniors who just graduated, which would be President Haley Kaczynski, Vice President Jenna DeLuca, Spirit Coordinator Quentin Kidridge, Secretary Maya Magnuson, Carrie England, Brenna Weston, Camille LeBlanc, and Caitlin Nelson for their years of service to Stuco. They'll all be dearly missed, and feel free to drop in anytime, especially the summer car wash, either to help or just get their car washed. Secondly, we recently attended the Spring Leadership Conference for Student Council, for CMAS, which is like the Southeastern Student Councils, where we learned collaborative and planning skills through a couple of different workshops that were led by this year's candidates for CMAS Executive Board. And we can't wait until next year starts up to get into a fall conference and all the conferences next year. Finally, we're putting on a Spirit Week for the middle high school during the last week of school, June 14th through the 18th. We're excited to have Spirit Week all together in a year where we were split up for a large portion of it. As usual, we always go strive for alliteration.
Oh, no.
School year, Task Force Tuesday, which is
Oh, Jay, we can't hear you. My Zoom screen is frozen, so I know I'm having connectivity issues also.
Yeah, I actually think,
We're killing the internet.
we're a little unstable here.
Yep.
So my connection was just unstable as the host of the Zoom. That probably affected people. But now I have a strong signal, so I'm not sure what's happening. Meredith, do you mind reaching out to technology and seeing if they can do something on the internet stability in the room currently to see if they need to boost up our signal?
I think Billy missed his last point about the Spirit Week.
All right, Jay, well,
Yes.
try again. You were finishing up on Spirit Week. Can you hear us now? We'll see how we do. I should be better because my internet connection is very strong right now.
Okay. Did you hear the start of the days, or should I just start with like Monday?
Yes, why don't you
Yes.
start again with what the Spirit Week is next week? That'd be great.
Please, thank you.
Okay. So I was saying we always go for alliteration for it, for the days, because it usually sounds better. So like Monday, we're doing River Monday, which is just show your school spirit. Tacky Tours Tuesday, which is wear like Hawaiian shirts, lays, sun hats, stuff like that. Wii Sports Wednesday, which is dress as your favorite Wii Sports character. Tie-dye Thursday, which is wear anything and everything tie-dye. And then Freedom Friday, wear patriotic colors to celebrate our freedom from school for the year. And we can't wait to see your spirit.
Very good.
So that's all I have, so thank you everyone.
Jay, thanks for being
That's
here
great.
tonight. Sorry that it was a little touch and go.
Yeah.
Thank you,
All right, no problem, I'm just glad it wasn't me.
Nope, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. I just want to try Tom again.
Sure.
Tom, you should be able to turn your video on and see how you do.
All right, can you hear me now?
You can.
We can.
Let's just go with I guess I'll just go with the volume at this point. So I'll be brief. I just want to say, good evening. It's been a long school year. I just want to thank everyone for their hard work and the efforts they put in. I hope people get to enjoy this weather and some time off this summer to really recharge your batteries. And go Bruins.
All right.
I second
Thanks,
that.
Tom.
Thank you very much, Tom. Okay, so should people type in the chat from home on Zoom if they want to ask a question?
Yeah, if they want to put their name and address.
So we are going into public comment period. So if you're interested in making a comment during public comment at this time, if you can put your name into the chat, that would be great.
Okay, so I'll start with anyone that's here. Is anyone that's here in person? Would anyone like to speak? Okay. Just give it a brief moment and see if anyone online wants to ask any questions, make a statement.
Again, I'll say it one more time. If you're at home and you're interested in making public comment via Zoom, if you could type your name into the chat at this time, that would be great.
All right.
I don't see anybody.
Nope. All right, so I guess we will move on to the approval of minutes from the May 10th, 2021 open session meeting. Someone like to make a motion?
Move to accept the May 10th, 2021 open session minutes. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I believe everyone was here for that. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. And that brings us to communications.
No specific communications for this evening. So That brings us right into reports from the superintendent.
Excellent.
If you're okay with me going right into letter A.
Absolutely.
So personnel update, since our last meeting, we've had a few new hires. We've hired Jesse Alexio as a new school psychologist. Morgan Brown as a one-year teacher at the elementary school, replacing a person on a one-year leave. And Amanda Rose as a new teacher at the elementary school. The interesting thing about all three new hires is that they all have, Jessie Alexio was a intern for us, so she had done her internship in school psychology with us. And Morgan Brown and Amanda Rose were both long-term subs this year as COVID positions. But because then things opened up, they're able to move into more full-time positions. You know, Amanda's a full-time and Morgan is a one-year for someone on a one-year leave. We did have one retirement, Roger King, who's been with the district for many years. Actually was one of the original basketball coaches, was the middle school and then JV basketball coach for many years. He's been with the district in a range of capacities since the middle high school opened in 1988. So Roger is retiring with us as an ESP.
Wow. Well, thank you very much.
Going to the biweekly metrics, if it's okay with the committee, I'll spend as much time here as you want, but I don't think we have to spend a lot of time here because the reality is the numbers are just really good. So I was just going to show you a couple of things, but like I said, we can go further into it if people would like to do that.
Yep. Nope.
So I do think, you know, a good starting point in terms of looking at the weekly metrics is looking at the color-coded map, because it's even changed a lot since last time we met. You know, as you know, as we've gone through the year, a lot of times this map has had a lot of red on it. And now there's really almost no yellow. If we remember our shadings, you know, red is the most severe, the most consistent cases of COVID, then yellow, then green, then gray. You know, gray is the best to be. If you look at this map, there's a large portion of the state that is now gray. There are still some communities around us, Plymouth, Middleborough, who are green. And there's only a couple, you know, there's only 4 or 5 yellow communities in the entire state, which is just really, you know, showing the trend that we're at with the virus. In terms of, you know, our overall numbers, I feel that we look at the Board of Health number. So the Board of Health has reported, they did not put out a weekly report for May 14th to May 20th week. The May 28th to June 3rd was 3 cases. So going back over the past week, there's only been 3 positive cases in the community of Carver, which is by far the best number we've had if you go back to when we started tracking this data on November 27th. And then when you look at the state reporting data, our numbers are actually as good as they've been since August 26th. So I think last time we met, I was going back to October and November and saying, our numbers are comparable to where we were in October and November. Now our numbers are actually comparable to where we were when we first started as a committee making a decision to track this data, which was for our August 26th meeting. So if you compare the numbers in terms of case count, total case count, positive tests, percentage of positivity, you know, we're very similar at this time for our June numbers of less than 5 cases, only 3 positive tests, a positivity rate of 0.66. And, you know, if we went through community by community, we'd see very similar statistics. It is, you know, it's actually been, I think throughout this whole process, we've seen that clear consistency along the South Shore. So what's happening in Carver has been what's been happening on the South Shore. And generally, when we're doing this, we're kind of looking town by town and seeing that consistency. As I said, my intention is not to do that tonight. I'm not going to go through each town. But if you did go through each town on the South Shore that we've been comparing to, you're going to see the same trend of data, that their numbers are as good or the best they've been since late August, early September, when we first started tracking this data. And then the last piece that I was going to look at is just the dashboard. So we did have a positive case last week for a remote student. So it was not a student who was in any of our schools at any time. So the dashboard's not all zeros. Last time we met, the dashboard was all zeros. So we do have 1 positive remote student at the elementary school that's still an active case. Besides that, the dashboard is all zeros. You know, so we really continue on that trend of having really positive, good information about what's happening with COVID within the Carver community. And I think this is repetitive to what we've talked about before, but I really think that's because of, vaccinations. The reality is that, a large portion of the population in Massachusetts is being vaccinated. We now have eligibility for students in terms of vaccinations for our students who are 12 through 17. We have a lot of students who are taking advantage of that. So, our numbers are just looking really good. So any questions for me on the weekly metrics, or if you want to see any other data that we normally looked at? I shortened it up a little bit. The only suggestion I would make is I would propose that we're going to keep the dashboard through the end of the school year. We're going to track the metrics through the end of the school year. Unless the committee gives me other direction, it's not my intention to continue to track that throughout the entire summer. And clearly when we meet again in July, I could give a kind of broad picture of COVID overview. So I guess I'm really asking the committee to give me some direction in terms of, would you like us to continue to track this data through the summer and have it on the next agenda? Or would you like to hold off at this point?
What do you think? Anyone have any thoughts?
Go ahead, Jason.
I see very little need for the dashboard over the summer because it doesn't matter how many kids are in quarantine or in close contacts over the summer.
And we probably won't even know.
It doesn't even matter. So I think let's just give it a break and then see where we're at in a few months. That's just my suggestion. But.
Nope, I agree. Hopefully there won't be a need for us to ever have it back again. That would be nice.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously for our next meeting, I'll just kind of give a general COVID overview. And if things have changed, certainly we can start tracking all this data again. And all this data is actually available on the state website. I showed you that before, this Mass DPH website. It's all there. That's where we pulled all this data from. It's available to the community if they want to see it. And if for some reason we had another spike or we were concerned, we could even go back and find all that data because we're pulling all this data from that Mass DPH website, which they do archive. And you can, if you wanted to, you can go on the site and go back and look at the data from last September. It's all there. So that would be my intention this time. So this would be our last kind of bi-weekly metrics update. But I'll give a more general COVID update the next time we meet in July. And so any other questions or concerns about metrics at this time?
Colleen, Jen, no? Okay. Nope. We're all set. Thank you.
All right. So moving on, we're excited to have Dave Aruda here with us this evening. Dave is our technology and engineering teacher, and he's going to provide an overview for the courses we've been offering and the build out of the pathways in manufacturing, engineering, and technology. So with great excitement, I welcome Dave to the presentation table. That's what we'll call it.
Absolutely. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Aruda. It's my distinct pleasure to be serving the community as the engineering technology teacher at the high school and developing this MET pathway for our students. I started my journey probably about 10 years ago in teaching in a similar program in engineering technology, and I took a lot away from that experience. I found that these types of programs like our MET pathway are a great opportunity for students from across the board, really, in terms of ability level and from different backgrounds to come together and learn together, to work as team members, to develop problem-solving skills and other technical skills they can take with them beyond high school into their careers. And it's my mission as this teacher to be someone who advocates for this program, but also develops a very strong program for students so that they can make it into a four-year engineering program in college or into a high-paying job in the local manufacturing industry, which has a lot of opportunities for students at this time. So it's my pleasure to report to you that despite any challenges this year provided us, we actually made a lot of progress towards these goals. The pathway's up and running and it's strong. I'm also very humbled to announce that, or to share with you that I've received tremendous support from basically everybody that was involved in this, from district administration to the school level administration to my colleagues to the community at large, the students. It's just been very humbling, and I'm very happy to say that we have that support. And it speaks to the community and the values that are here.
And Dave, not to interrupt you for a second, but I will say that last summer we had a big discussion about this because we were concerned about, and before you were hired per se, we were concerned about going into a hybrid year, what the year was going to look like. Did it make sense to try to kick off a program like this program in the hybrid or COVID environment? In the end, we said, yeah, I think it makes sense, and then we did it. We were very excited to bring you on board to run this program. What a great job you've done with it. And obviously looking back a year later saying, that would have been a terrible decision if we had decided to not go forward. And I do think that, one of the things that I've been really happy with, and we've talked about this a couple times as a committee, is that as much as COVID has been a focus and protocols and whether we're going to be hybrid or full in person or remote or all those things, we've still kind of kept that central mission of what are we doing in school and what's happening in school and what are we doing to improve what's happening in school. And we've moved forward. We've moved forward very well with all of our pathways. We've moved forward at the elementary school. So the key work to education, and not saying that whether we were in school or not was not key work, certainly it was. But the foundational work of education has really pushed forward, and Dave's been a leader in that. Sorry, Dave, I interrupted you, but I wanted to say that but last year at this time we were thinking, I don't know, do we do this? And I'm so glad we did.
Yeah, me too. I'm very happy to be here. And I think that's a great transition into the actual update on the slides you see there. We were able to roll out the MET pathway this year with actual courses for our students. We had an enrollment somewhere around 60 students in our introductory courses and a few more in the electives we were able to offer. Our mission really is to provide our students with a series of project-based courses designed to prepare them for college and career opportunities in manufacturing, engineering, and/or technology. And my mission there is to really develop a variety of skills. Of course, we're going to teach them about the technical aspects of engineering and technology, but we also want to develop their employability skills, especially the soft skills like problem solving, teamwork, teach them how to make things, give them skills with computer-aided design and computer-aided machining, which are skills that the industry is looking for, develop their technical writing skills, and offer them opportunities to explore college and career while as a part in this program. So in terms of the curriculum, we were able to develop and articulate a scope and sequence for the entire pathway this year. It starts out with the level 1 course, the introductory course, where students spend a term learning about the foundations of engineering. We walk them through the engineering design process through project-based learning opportunities. We also introduce them to computer-aided design. We've been using Onshape as our platform, which is an industry standard. And that's just a course that gets students excited and it serves as an entry point into the actual pathway. Students that decide to continue can move on to level 2, which will roll out next fall for the first time. This principles course expands on the things we've learned in Introductory to Engineering, but also gets the computer-aided machining involved. We've secured funding through the capital outlay to purchase a CNC machine, which is a really special piece of technology for high school to have, and will prepare students for work in the field right out of high school. That machine will be a big part of level 2. Level 3 offers students an opportunity to explore more in-depth various topics in engineering. This year we were able to roll out a Robotics 1 curriculum using the VEX equipment that was purchased through capital outlay. The VEX Robotics has served as an after-school program for a number of years in Carver, and now we have an in-school program centered on that as well, so more students can access that. Next year we're hoping to expand our elective offerings to include Robotics 2, so students can continue that work. Also offering a biomedical engineering course. We have a strong connection with some companies out in the Raynham belts where they work in biomedical engineering technologies. Aerospace technology is another course we're going to be offering next year with connections at Plymouth Airport to get students excited about that realm in engineering as well. Finally, there will be a level 4, which has not yet been developed and will be at least a year or two out. That course will be an advanced manufacturing course where students will develop their own product and work through that process and prepare themselves for the MET internship, which gets them outside the school working in a local industry. In terms of the physical plant, I wish I had a before and after picture here for when we started in August and what we have now. In August, when I was hired, I walked into a very old computer lab. It had some 1980s technology. We were able to strip that down and build it up into what you see here. This is our engineering design lab. Presently, in this picture, you see a lot of the equipment that we purchased through capital outlay. Right in the front of the image, you see the laser cutter, the Epilogue Fusion laser cutter we've been using with our students, which is a CNC machine of sorts. In the back of the room, you'll see 3 3D printers that students have been using to make parts with. We also have a variety of tools and computers for students to access softwares on. See, these are some of the technology resources that, again, were purchased through capital outlay and our students have access to. The Tormac CNC mill is up in the top right-hand corner. That's the big piece of equipment we brought in. Again, that's an industry standard for anyone working in manufacturing these days. And it's very rare that a high school has this type of equipment in it. So it's great for our students to have access to this and be able to train on a piece of equipment that they might see in their job post-high school. Below that are some other pieces of technology we purchased, including drone technologies for that aviation technology course. The VEX robotics technologies next to that, to the right. And we also have a lot of programming technologies. That's an Arduino microcontroller. A lot of the industry we've talked to say that programmable logic controllers are a big deal for anyone entering their fields. So we're trying to get students up to date on that technology as well. Next up, I just wanted to showcase some of the student projects we did this year. Of course, COVID had its challenges. At the beginning of the year, a lot of the projects were individual, but we have been able to move towards partner projects at the end of the school year now that we can share materials. So you're seeing a variety of different projects here from the 4 introductory courses that we offered. You'll see bridge design. It's kind of your classic introduction to engineering problem. In the center, to the left of that, you see a sea perch robot where students are developing a waterproof robot to go find dive rings to the bottom of a barrel. Below that, we have automated greenhouses that students were building. Those greenhouses turn on and off when the lights shut off in the room to provide light to the plants. If you go around the horn, you'll see a mousetrap car and solar car. We also see a solar house to get some architectural design involved, as well as alternative energy technologies. And the list goes on. This is just a snapshot of some of the things our students have achieved this year.
It's excellent.
Finally, this is a little bit more, but the cross-curricular connections have been really strong at the middle high school. It's been really exciting to work with my colleagues to see different ways that we can connect our pathways together. We've had a very strong connection with the biotechnology pathway. The biomedical engineering course is going to be offered across through both pathways, so students in MET can also take it, and students in biotech can take it. That picture on the bottom left is an InMove robot we started to build. That's a humanoid robot. It's controlled using Arduino technology, and we have students from both pathways involved in that. The environmental agriculture pathway has also been pretty well connected to us. The automated greenhouse was something we did together with some of the teachers involved in that pathway. We also have connections with the Project Lead the Way work that Aaron Young's doing in the math department. And of course, project-based learning and that push has been a huge piece of the MET pathway development. Industry connections have been a really, really important part of my work this year and our work in general. We've made these connections so far with industries in the area. Flexo Concepts is kind of the central partner we've developed in guiding the MET pathway with Greg Howell, who's I believe the president of Flexo Concepts. He's helped us, design our engineering lab and look at the ethos of our program and really understand where we're headed with this. We've also had a number of volunteers work with our students remotely this year from places like SpaceX and iRobot. These are nationally recognized engineering firms. And also on the local end, we're working with DECUS and Teledyne Marine on some of our projects. We've also worked with local colleges to try to develop some pathway for students post high school, and those include Bridgewater State University in their photonics department, as well as Cape Cod Community College in their work with aviation technology. And also beyond that, looking at employability skills with groups like Mass Hire, Signal Success, and PBL. So, of course, it seems like we've made a lot of progress this year, and I feel like we have, but there's always more to do. We've identified a number of next steps. One of the great exciting things for next year is going to be building out our makerspace, which will be our building lab across the hall from our design lab. That's where the Tormac CNC machine will go and some of our other big equipment. We'll have workbenches for students to build. We'll have our robotics arena set up full time so students can work on those projects in that space. It'll also be a resource to our larger school community for any project-based work that they have. We're going to continue curriculum development, as I discussed before, introducing industry credentials to our courses. That second tier course involves an ONSHAPE certification, so students can add that to their resume and bring it with them to their internship, as well as OSHA safety certifications. for industry. We hope to continue to be supported in a way that we can expand technology resources. There's a number of other CNC equipment that we could bring in to further our students' involvement in that, including what you see at the bottom there, the Tormac router. It's a CNC router. And then beyond that, we're looking at identifying internship opportunities and developing additional industry connections to further the connection with our students that way. So just in conclusion, I just thank you very much for your time tonight, and I appreciate everyone's support. It's been a wonderful transition for me this year to come to Carver, and I'm very, very happy I did. And I look forward to what the future has for us. And I also invite you all to come to the high school to visit the labs and see what our students are doing. It's a wonderful program, and I think that the students are getting a lot out of it so far.
Excellent.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much for coming and sharing all of that.
The only thing I want to add on is I noticed, and I did reference it a few times through the presentation, saying, that we were able to purchase this through capital outlay. So, just a thank you to the community again. So it shows a little bit where those resources are going. And for the last couple of years, last 2 years, the community has supported us with $100,000 for curriculum and capital outlay to really build out the Pathways programs. So it gives a little bit of the community a sense of where that investment has gone. And, part of that investment has gone to building out these spaces at the middle high school. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank the community for that.
Absolutely.
Dave, thank you. Great presentation. I have no
Thank you, Mr. Neef.
questions.
Anyone have any questions?
I just have a question. How are these pathway programs introduced to the students? Like, are they orientation presentations or pamphlets, or how do they, kind of get an idea of what it's all about, or are they taking it upon themselves to research the different pathways?
I'm going to throw that question to Meredith, if that's okay, or I'll take it. And then Dave, I'll let you talk a little bit about how you invited people in to join your pathway in particular.
Okay.
If that works.
So this is the first year that's been an ongoing conversation that we've had, and through both the guidance department and administration and then the teachers themselves, they've had the opportunity to develop 8th grade career exploratory opportunities for students. And then the point of entry to take these classes, especially with the current block schedule, adds much more flexibility. So instead of having to join like by 9th grade, you can actually enter in 10th, maybe 11th, but and 8th grade. So there are lots of opportunities along there. And then we have done a fair amount of outreach. Dave can talk about that specifically, and then Scott can add some other components.
Yeah, and Mr. Schultz actually did a presentation for each grade level this year, so we had class meetings and really talked about the build out of the pathways for all of our students. I believe 7th grade up. I don't know if it was 8th and up or 7th and up. I don't know, honestly, I don't remember. And then also had a parent night in the winter, spring. So I had a parent evening, invited parents in, discussed the Pathways program. So it will become part of our course selection process, really. So as parents go through as parents and students go through the course selection process, there's always going to be a presentation about the options of the Pathways programs. Now, obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a focus on our 7th and 8th graders in terms of some of those presentations, because we're looking at our students enter those pathways possibly in 9th or 10th grade. We want them to know that's an option for them. We're also planning on doing some outreach down. Mr. Schultz isn't going to be here tonight to do his school improvement plan, but when he does at our next meeting, he's going to talk a little bit about doing some outreach down to elementary school as well, to start making, and we're doing it through our meetings, but make the community aware, as early on as possible, that these are going to be options and programs and availability for students at the middle high school level. So next year our goal is to actually do some outreach at the elementary level as well. And Dave, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit specifically about the application process you did and what you sent out. It's very similar to this presentation, actually, what you sent out to parents.
Yeah, so I think that the exploratory aspect of the program is really important. That's something that Mr. Schultz supports, is having students have an opportunity to try different things before they commit. So using this introductory course at the 8th grade level, which is the predominant age group that we service, has been really strong. We can service almost 80% of the 8th graders in the building, so most of them get a chance to explore engineering in some way. And then at that point, at the end of that course, there's an opportunity to sign up for the pathway, where we give a presentation like this to the students, but also pass on information to parents in a number of ways that Mr. Neef and Ms. Erickson have discussed. But I think that it's important that a lot of kids get exposed to it. In terms of outreach, again, pointing things down to the elementary school, after-school programming, where students come to do robotics, but also esports is another thing we're involved in. Another way to kind of give them, get a hook so they can come in and see what we're all about.
Thank you.
Can I just add, that I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that Julia Whalen, who is part of our science department, developed a Carver Pathways Instagram, and we also have a website, and then we did a social media campaign. And I remember Stephanie, you liking some of the pictures on there, and just, we really appreciate the school committee support as we push out things like that. I know, using Facebook to help promote those type of programs is a really good use of that tool. So I just wanted to say that it was many hands that came together to just start this process.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming. Look forward to learning more about it in the future. Anyone else?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Mr. Arruda, will there be opportunities to take kids through these programs to area engineering schools for like tours and if they're getting it more advanced into their interest in engineering? I mean, you have Wentworth, you have MIT, but you also have a very small engineering college in Olin College in Needham. That's very strong in the curriculum, and they're pretty local. So is that something you see going down the road, maybe like a field trip or a presentation from them?
Yeah, you just mentioned both of my alma maters, so.
Ah.
Yeah, so I think that is very important. Obviously, the industry connection is a big piece because not every student will go to college or choose to go to college, but having students be exposed to the various college opportunities is important. We had discussions even this week with some of our juniors that are interested in looking at colleges, and they were concerned. They didn't think they had a lot of opportunities around here, and I was like, whoa, we really do. There's a lot of great engineering schools right in Massachusetts, a lot of affordable engineering schools here. And working with community colleges is very important too, because that's an even a bigger situation for some students, is just getting their foot in the door and getting started and having an opportunity to bound to some other program from there. Four Cs is a big part of that, I think, moving forward, and Bridgewater as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I remember when Stephanie and I toured the school, I think they were getting ready for their robotics competitions, and we got to see them battling.
Yep.
It was really incredible, some of the technology and the fact that they built those using the 3D printers and stuff. So you're doing great work over there. It was very impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Thanks. Have a nice night.
Thank you, you too. Well, there's Ruby.
Okay, so moving on to school improvement plan. So as I mentioned, actually, Mr. Schultz actually had a personal obligation this evening, so he's going to be unable to attend. But our intention would be to put the middle high school improvement plan on our next meeting agenda. But Mrs. Maestas is here this evening, so we're happy to have Ruby with us, and she's going to present the elementary school improvement plan. Ruby, if you give me a half a second to get it up on the screen.
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Ruby.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. So, as Mr. Meek said, I'm going to go over the elementary school improvement plan. Most of you are familiar with our 4 strategic objectives, so I won't go over those too much, but again, we have created and are working on continuing some of our goals and objectives that fall under all of these 4 categories. So first off, to get us started, under safe and supportive schools, we have been working this year with ensuring that we're providing all of the students with some universal lessons in social emotional learning, and they've been doing that with our school adjustment counselors. So as you all know, we have a pre-K through 2 school adjustment counselor as well as a 3 through 5. And basically, in order for us to achieve the goal of having all of the students receive SEL lessons during COVID, we needed to have our school adjustment counselors included on our specialist rotation. That was the way that we were able to achieve that this year. Now, going into next year, what we're going to do is we're going to be hiring 1 school adjustment counselor. It's a temporary position, and this school adjustment counselor will be the staff member that will be focusing on those lessons. And we really needed to do that to support the school adjustment counselor just with the caseload, because pre-COVID, our school adjustment counselors did have a very high caseload. And what they do is they service students, whether they're on an IEP or a 504 or not. You don't have to be on an IEP or 504 to receive social emotional support or counseling. But the school adjustment counselors really focus on short-term, school-related counseling. But now going into this next year, we see and we realize that there's going to be an even bigger need for our school adjustment counselors to support students with school-related transition, anxiety, and that sort of thing. So that's why we have a school adjustment counselor that we're going to hire, again, temporarily. And that person will be delivering the universal lessons. They will be working very closely with our counselors and with the teachers to support the students and focus on areas that are of high need. The next thing, just again tied to social emotional learning for our students, we have what we call our Tier 2 instruction. We started the Tier 2 instruction more formally a couple years ago. So in 2019, the spring of 2019, we used a tool that you might remember, we called it the DESA, and it's basically an assessment tool where the teachers, once they have had several weeks of an understanding of the students in their classroom, they complete a questionnaire that helps us to identify students who need more support to strengthen their own SEL skills. So we're going to continue to use that Tier 2 model, and our counselors will be able to support that. We've often pulled other staff to help, because what we're doing here is trying to service students in a very small group model. So we're going to continue that. And then some things that you are familiar with, I've left on here. I just want to make sure you all know that there's still a number of things that we started to really focus on pre-COVID. And then we had to kind of temporarily pause some of these things. Alice was one of those things, just because, we were working in hybrid, and sometimes remote. So now what we want to do is get back to really working on those reunification plans that we had started a couple years ago. We've also worked on, or want to continue working our plans for, obviously for reentry, full reentry. That's the game plan for us in the fall. But we also want to ensure that we pay real close attention to the remote students and help them with reentering, because they haven't been in school in, almost 18 months.
Yeah.
We've really worked on our move-up day too, so we want to continue to focus that. And all of these things under social emotional learning and safe and supportive schools are all about really helping the kids transition. So that's the first one. So if you can go back up.
I don't know, I don't know if we want to take questions after each of the
Sure.
four, or as a whole, choice of the committee, whatever you'd like to do. Want to just do the whole presentation, or you want to do it each one?
Anyone have any questions so far? Oh, Jason?
I can wait. I don't care.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, Jay, I opened
All
it.
right, that's fine. I know this year, there's like an SEL class in the elementary school. Is that going to be continued next year? Is that the initial plan?
So Jason, that's a great question. That is actually 1.1. So where it says universal lessons for all the students. So that's what we've been doing. That's the counselors that they've been working on during specialists. So the students get these services once every 6 days. So we will continue this next year, and that will be the new school adjustment counselor that we've hired. Will deliver those lessons.
Thank you.
So it'll be year 2 for them.
Oh, Jen?
Thank you. So the new hire will take over the classes for all grades? Because I think right now it's split between the two. So we'll have, the other two counselors will just be seeing students one-on-one?
No, they don't, so Yes and no. So the school adjustment counselor that we hired will be delivering all of the universal lessons under 1.1. The school adjustment counselors that are our permanent counselors, they do small group, they will do tier 2, they will do individual, they will do prices, they will do everything else.
Okay.
They will do resource and referral, lots of those things, yes. IEP meetings, 504 meetings.
Anyone else? Okay. Oh.
This may not even be appropriate for right now, but is this new hire already built into our budget?
Yes, so, well, this is going to be, it's not part of our budgets, but it is going to be some money that we expend from our ESSER funds.
Okay, perfect.
So it was not in the proposed budget that was approved by the school committee, but it is an additional position that we'll be able to fund through the ESSER funds.
Thank you.
Yes, and that's why it's a temporary position.
Yeah, so it was posted as a one-year position.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions under safe and supported schools?
Anyone? No. We're all set.
Oh, Ruby,
All right. You ready for the next one?
Yes,
Yep.
please.
All right, so under the second one, continued development of focused outreach. So this first bullet actually established local early childhood council is something new that we want to establish going into this next year. What we've done in the past several years, Mrs. Foley, who is our early childhood coordinator, has worked with area preschools to help provide professional development. Basically, what we've been doing is trying to work with them, providing PD, supporting them, and helping them understand what we're looking for when we accept children into kindergarten. So it's really all about readiness. And so we really felt like in this past several months, because we weren't working with these preschools during COVID, just because of the nature of it, everyone was trying to adjust, we felt that we needed to establish a council to work closely with not only our early childhood programs in Carver, but along the South Shore. And this model has really worked well, both with our math council that Meredith has worked with Jen Kelly on, and we just felt like it would be a really nice next step. So a lot of the things that these groups do is they work together to build professional development, they train each other, it's a real good opportunity to network, and so that would be a monthly meeting. And Mrs. Foley, who we all know is retiring, Mrs. Dawson will be moving to pre-K through 2. She's going to be our early childhood coordinator, and she will be working closely with the Early Childhood Council.
Okay.
And next on our list here is collaborate with the PCO Hub to support at-risk families. So the PCO Hub is a Plymouth County organization that is basically, it encompasses all of the police departments in Plymouth County, or maybe not all of them, but many of them, and there's quite a number of them.
It does include all of Plymouth County, Ruby.
It's all of them?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
all.
I think there's like 27 or something like that. So all of the police departments are working with the local mental health agencies, even the hospitals, just area resources, with the goal of the program really being to help support families who are struggling and step in and provide services before they reach a crisis point. And so Carver Elementary had not been involved with this in the past, so we just started getting involved with the organization, and we really just want to continue to be a resource to families. The next one, increasing our parent-teacher relationship. Again, this is all about communication, building that bridge, and supporting families. So here, it's just continue to communicate in as many avenues as possible to support our families and make sure we're getting information out to you. The next one is, one of the things that we've learned is, we've taken attendance. We've always taken attendance at our parent-teacher conferences, for example. And in previous years, I can remember trying to do incentives so that we would get 100% participation. We do pizza party for for the class. But what we've learned is, sometimes, and we've even tried to do childcare. We've collaborated with the YMCA, and sometimes that works out really well. But one of the things we've learned during COVID is when we had the Zoom or the virtual parent conference, we had 100% attendance quite easily. So we really want, in most of the classes, on that evening. But we really had everyone connecting within a week or two. Sometimes families can't make it that evening, but that's fine. It was an easier way for us to accommodate families. So we want to continue to provide that as an option so that we can just ensure that we're meeting with parents and that we have some type of flexible schedule. So I think if you can scroll down, Mr. Neek, yeah, so there it is, provide accessibility options for parent meetings so that we're connecting. All right?
That's excellent.
Any questions on number 2?
Anyone have any questions? Nope. Thank you.
The next one, elevate teaching and learning. This is all about curriculum instruction, professional development. We have been working, Mrs. Erickson and Mr. Neath have been sending out regular surveys to staff, working with the PDC, which is the Professional Development Committee, to gather feedback and information from the teachers on what areas of need they have. So one of the things that we're really going to, again, focus on is Bridges math curriculum. We're going into our 3rd year. However, it's not our 3rd complete year. We did a rollout of the Bridges program. First, we started with K-1-2, then we rolled it into 3rd, 4th, 5th. And so we want to continue to provide teachers with support so that they're feeling confident and comfortable with the instructional pieces of the curriculum. And then we'll also have Mrs. Kelly, our math coach, back as an instructional coach. As you all well know, we had to really adjust a lot of our staffing to ensure that we were supporting all of the different learning platforms we've had. So Ms. Kelly has been a classroom teacher. She was a hybrid teacher, and then she was a classroom teacher. So her instructional duty coaches had instructional coach duties. She hasn't really been able to focus on them.
Okay.
So the next area here is just all around inclusive practices throughout the school community. What we want to do is ensure that we're supporting teachers in their growth with regard to inclusive practices in all areas for our staff, students, especially in families. The next one is NIAC. So Mrs. Foley presented the NIAC information a few school meetings ago. And so NIAC, a visitor, representative comes to visit the elementary school once every 5 years. We will be starting that process all over again, and there's just a series of standards that has to be met, and we're in that year 1 phase, which really means that we're completing an annual report and that we're ensuring compliance in all the standards for year 1. And Ms. Dawson will be helping us with all of that. And we're going to continue to rebuild our best practices to address learning gaps, learning loss that result from COVID. Again, that's going to be done by supporting our teachers and all of our staff through professional development, engaging the Reading Curriculum Council. So 3 or 4 years back now, we engaged the Math Council, and that was really the work of Meredith Cargill and Mrs. Kelly. I help and support by observing, going to other schools to visit, working with the teachers, helping to bring everyone along. but Mrs. Cargill, sorry, I call you Miss Cargill and you're Mrs. Erickson.
It's okay.
Is working to, she's actually already established the reading council. Again, that council was somewhat put on pause this year, but she has some meetings planned for the, right when school gets out. Our teachers will be working with her and with us, again, to get ready for what the reading council tasks are going to be and get ready to look at various reading curriculums. It's a process of research and review and just acquiring knowledge and information to figure out what's the best program for Carver Elementary School. Next, again, increased teacher competencies for new normal learning environment. So whatever that is, we know that we are going to be ready for the students for the fall, and that's why this is kind of vague. But I just wanted to make sure that we put it in here. Structure the reading intervention model to address student gaps identified by data. So we didn't have a reading intervention model per se this year. We were able to do a very modified, very modified version of it the last several weeks of school into maybe, starting in April or May. As you all know, the reading interventionists, again, they've been teaching classes. Mrs. Porter is a third grade remote teacher. Mrs. Williams is a second grade teacher. Ms. Caleb, who works part-time, has been doing some of the reading intervention and supporting some of the students who are on IEPs in kindergarten. So what we have to do, pull together, really look at our needs and structure our model so that it identifies the gaps that we, in some cases, do exist, in some cases they may not. So we just have to look at student data.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Nope, okay. All set.
So moving right along, leverage leadership policy and funding. Here's where we're really trying to be creative with how we are using our resources and how we are using the school environment that we have. We've been working for the since we moved into the new school, we really, one of our goals was to expand preschool so that it was, fully maximized. We have 3 classrooms. Those 3 classrooms weren't funded by the MSBA. That was actually, the Carver, the town of Carver, really. So we want to ensure that those 3 classrooms are fully utilized. We do have 3 preschool teachers. We do have several programs running. We have 3-year-old programs, we have 4-year-old programs. But remember, pre-K is currently, it's an integrated preschool, meaning that we have children who are on IEPs, and then we build around that, and we develop that with role model students. That's a lot of the work that Ms. Tyker and Ms. Foley have been doing, and that will be carried forward by the help of Mrs. Dawson, our new special education director, Mrs. Leary, myself, everyone really, the teachers, just to ensure that we're fully maximizing all that we have. And then we also want to continue to work on creating a pre-K transitional program. It's not uncommon for some of our pre-K students who are 5 and they're eligible age-wise for kindergarten, but they're not quite there yet academically, social-emotionally, and so we realize there's a need for a bit of a transitional class. All of this goes, QRS kind of falls into line with everything early childhood. It basically stands for quality rating improvement system is what it is. It's a series of standards that include the physical environment, the learning standards, management pieces, family engagement, and QRIS was put on pause also during COVID. We want to ensure that we're still working with the Department of Massachusetts and the Early Childhood Organization to meet those standards. And, there are research-based standards that we just want to make sure that our early childhood program is well aligned with. And the state helps us with that. Next here is a diagnostic tool for student data. We used NWEA this year. It was somewhat of a pilot year, but we really wanted to adopt this assessment tool, and so we're working on that as well. Sorry about that, my clock is chiming.
Sounds nice.
All right, so the next section here is conduct an annual review and revise our staff para substitute and new handbooks to reflect all of our the latest policies and procedures as needed. And this is really to support our staff and all our new hires. One of the things that I really want us to get better at is, we hire staff, but sometimes it's not all that easy to make sure they have all of the training they need. And that's just because the nature of school. I mean, sometimes you're hiring someone in November or January. When we hire someone for the beginning of the school year, it works well. Because you have time to get them trained, get them on board. But when you're hiring folks mid-year, it's a little bit more challenging. And so we just want to make sure that we have everything in our handbooks and our information, just to make sure that our new folks have an opportunity to review it, read it, ask questions, go through everything, and get very familiar and acquainted with the school. And then the next thing that we have, I think that's it.
Okay, does anyone have any questions about number 4? Nope, seeing none. Thank you very much for the presentation, Ruby. This was very informative and very detailed. Just want to say thank you to you and thank you to your staff for everyone's efforts. I know this year has been unlike any other, and I'm sure that many people are eager to get back to doing, much of this good work, but thank you for everything so far. Greatly appreciated.
You're welcome. And before you all go, I had this page that I meant to share with you first, but I'm gonna share it now. So our school improvement plan is really the work of all of the staff, but there's a focus group that meets monthly, and it's the school council. So I want to make sure just to acknowledge this group of parents and staff members. I'll start with the parents. So we have Ryan Reset, who has worked with us for the last couple of years on the council, Lindsay Silva, who has a first grader with us, Shay Thompson, who is a guardian of one of our kindergartners, and Shannon Alzheimer is one of our parents. And then we have Anne-Marie Blackton. She is one of our pre-K teachers. Susan Hannon, a kindergarten ESP. Joyce Macrino, one of our grade 3 teachers. Pat Tobin, our ELL teacher. That's the group, and myself, that comprises our school council for this year. And then the other members that weighed in and contribute to a lot of the goals and objectives that I talked about were our counselors, Mrs. Dawson, Mrs. Erickson, Mrs. Foley, Mrs. Kelly, Mrs. Moore.
Thank you very much.
For their hard work.
Absolutely, it's very much appreciated. Thank you very much for taking the time to recognize them. I remember from many years ago the good work that was done on school council, so thank you to everyone. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ruby.
Thank
Okay, so where does that bring us to? Tiered focus monitoring final report.
So moving on next to the tiered focus monitoring final report. So I reached out to Karen Tykert, Director of Special Education, who's retiring this year, and said, wouldn't you love to do one final presentation for the school committee before your retirement? And she said, absolutely, I'd love to do that. So we're glad to have Karen here with us this evening. And we've actually had a few presentations on the tiered focus monitoring process over the last couple of years. If you remember, we were supposed to have our site visit right before the shutdown last year in March. So we ended up having our site visit this year. They've now issued our final report, which actually includes some focus areas for improvement for us, and it includes our improvement plan. So Karen's going to kind of give us an overview of the process and the improvement plan, And so we're glad to have Karen here with us.
Thank you.
Hey, Karen.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Karen, you're going to be our new hire in September, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just think about what position I would want to be in. So if you remember, Scott's kind of did that little introduction on the tier focus monitoring. It used to be called the coordinated program review. They used to do it every 7 years. It's the way the state monitors special ed services. They do it amongst all the schools in the state, as well as EL services and some civil rights things that they monitor through the districts. So in order to make it a little more supportive and kind of less punitive, they revamped the whole system, and they turned it into 2-3 year cycles, and they took half of what they look at and put it in one cohort and half in another cohort, and then created a cycle that happens every 3 years now instead of every 7 years. So this year we were in Group A, and it starts with a self-assessment. So they have the director of special ed and the other people in the district that I pulled into that to look at some student files, to upload some documents from the special ed procedures manual for them, and anything else that they kind of ask for. And in that self-assessment, there's certain things trends and patterns they want you to look at, and then I submit a report to the state on my findings of how we are doing in certain areas. And then they take that information along with some other state information that they have on the district, and then they do an on-site monitoring. So that whole process takes at least a year. So that you have the self-assessment that first year. By the start of the second year, they come and do the on-site monitoring where they actually look themselves at some records. They do some staff reviews. They sometimes do some site visits around the school. And then they come out with their report, and based on that report, they ask you to create some improvement plan, or depending on the severity of whatever they find, corrective action plan. So a continuous improvement plan is kind of their way of saying, these things aren't like serious findings, but we feel like these are areas you should focus on to improve. A corrective action plan would be things that they felt like are more, need more intensive work to correct. And then then you spend about a year doing that, and then the next year they come out with the next self-assessment on the second group of things they want to look at. And then that same cycle happens, and then you're back to the year with the Group A thing. So we are now in that continuous monitoring plan until that next self-assessment. So some of the things they look at when they're trying to assess how we're doing in these standards are that pre-assessment that the director of special ed does, and Meredith did one for some civil rights standards, ELL standards. And then state data that's automatically generated or gathered in other ways like graduation rates, discipline rates, parent complaints, any kind of mediation, that kind of thing. They just kind of assess where the district is through some of those things. Then the document reviews and the student record reviews, they send out a parent survey directly from the state to the parents, and then they do staff interviews. Some of the areas that they really focus on in the student file are just the whole IEP team process, are the process of placement, reporting on progress, assessments, student discipline procedures as it applies to students with special needs, out-of-district placements, making sure that special ed services are accessible by students and families that have a second language, and they'll occasionally have some specific state focus areas that they're working on that year and that they'll hone in on. And then they've also rolled in, we used to do the state has districts constantly providing them data to assess certain things that the state is working on. And depending on what cohort you're in, you're collecting different data. So during that cohort A, we were sending in data on our evaluation timelines. So there's a form that we fill out that says, you know, when the consent went out and then when the meeting actually happened. And we have to like submit that, and they're looking to make sure those timelines are being met. And the same thing with early childhood transition. The preschool teachers fill out information on when students were referred by EI, when they had their meetings, when they were brought into preschool, looking to make sure they were getting services by the time they were 3. And then secondary transition, they're looking to make sure that transition plans are made for students as they get into those high school years, and make sure that those transition plans are being updated each year. So they're looking at those kind of data. So we had submitted all that as part of this, and we're found to be compliant in all 3 of those areas. So these are all the standards that they looked at during this cohort A group. There was a fair amount of them. Most of those, the SEs are special ed, and then the CRs are civil rights. So cohort A is heavy on the special ed. Cohort B then will be a little heavier on the civil rights and a little less on the special ed. So the 3 areas that they looked at for us to have, that they looked at and marked as being partially implemented and were suggested as our focus areas for improvement are those 3 with the arrows. So, and I'll explain those ones. Determination of transition services, progress reports, and leadership environment. Which actually, when you look at what they're actually saying, it's not so much our implementation in those areas, it's more the way we write them in the IEP. So it's more the language in the IEPs than the implementation, because in some of these areas we scored really well in our actual implementation of those things. But I'll show you what they were looking at. So in terms of the transition, written there is what they describe as the issue. And even in this statement, it talks to the fact that records and interviews indicated that no later than when the student is 14, the team did discuss the student's transition needs annually. So those discussions are happening, and actually in terms of our indicator, the services are good for transition. It's just that in the IEP itself, the vision statement and transition planning form, they didn't feel like there was as robust and measurable post-secondary goals that address training, education, employment, when appropriate, independent living skills. So it's really more a matter of how we write that in the IEP. So I put an example in here. In the IEP, it asks to consider the student's preference and interests, desired outcomes, and put that in the IEP. So in this one, in this one, I do feel like in this example, it was probably minimally met. So it wasn't like super robust, but all those pieces were in there. There probably are some that are a little even more general, and probably that's what they were looking at, is they just want this piece kind of beefed up a little bit.
Okay.
And then in terms of progress reports, they did feel like between parent surveys and looking at records, they feel like parents don't always receive the reports on students' progress, at least as often as report cards go out. I probably agree with this. I think that sometimes they're missed, especially if a meeting has just happened and people have just spoken about things. Sometimes I think they don't go out. It's a very, I do hope that the state works on improving the progress report system, because I don't think it's very parent-friendly even, and it's very time-consuming for the special ed teachers, the way it's set up now to put those progress reports out. So I do hope as part of the IEP improvement project that the state is running right now, that that's one of the things, that they come up with a better system for that. But I would agree that I think this is, we can pay a little more attention to, so. And then least restrictive statement is just it's just the statement. It's not actually having kids in the least restrictive setting. We do a great job with that piece. But there's a very small little statement in the IEP. It's like buried in a page full of other information. And it just asks why is removal considered critical to the student's program? So why do we have to pull them out of the general education classroom to provide the service? And in this one example, it's where it says the student may be removed from the classroom to receive speech and language services. He or she will participate in Pathways Math, English, Communication Skills, and Student Assistance Center as classes progress at a slower pace and allow for more individualized time on learning. That one probably does explain why it needs to be outside of the general ed setting. But in another IEP, the statement was just student will be removed from the general education setting during the student assist center period. And those are the kind of general statements that they're saying. They really want to know why that service can't happen in a regular ed classroom. Why do they have to be pulled out to provide that service? And I agree with that. I think the state is looking, I think what they're looking for is to really make sure people are focusing on trying to do as much in the gen ed setting as possible, and that whole push for like universal design for learning and differentiation so that kids don't have to be pulled out to have the services provided. So in making teams really think about and ask that question and write it in more detail why it can't be done in the gen ed classroom, I think that can also help. But I will say I think we do a good job of doing that. It's just that we're not stating it clearly enough in the IEPs. So those were the three areas, and so our next steps, I created action plans for each of these areas of improvement, and then because we're rated up on district, we don't have to report anything back to the state. They're trusting us to just work on this on our own, and Melissa will just follow the action plans. Mostly it's related to just focusing staff attention to these areas and then running a few monitoring and checks to see that adjustments are being made in these three areas. And then this is quickly just what the next group B, which would probably be 2023, 2024, although I don't know what they'll do because this was supposed to have happened for us last year. I don't know if they're going from that year or if they'll go from this year for the 3 to 4 years, but these will be the areas that we'll be looking at. As I just wanted to point out too, I think when the evaluation team from the state talked to us, they did make a point of saying that our parent survey responses were really positive, and that wasn't something that they always see, and we had a pretty good turnout. I mean, we had about 60 parents respond. That's probably about out of 300 that would have gotten a survey. But the state felt like that was a really good response rate, and they were impressed at the positiveness of our parent surveys, which meant a lot to us to get that feedback. So just a couple examples. There was about 30 to 40 questions, but the ones that are kind of more general, one of them was just my school welcomes all families, and here 55% strongly agree and 39% agree. And then on the next one, the next example was I included as a member of my child's individualized education program team, and that was a 98% positively responded to that. And then they also did verbally just provide us with a few of the comments, which I'll just leave up there for you guys to read, but a few of the comments that parents had said, because again, they did make a point of saying that it was particularly positive, the parent survey was.
And Karen, just as one add-on, I'm actually going to read the definition of a level 1 school, just so people hear that.
Okay.
So DESI defines a level 1 self-directed improvement district as one in which data points indicate no concern on compliance and performance outcomes. Level 1 districts are defined as meeting requirements. So we have to remember that was our overall rating. They've identified these 3 areas where they're saying we can do a better job and asked us to, create an improvement plan in each of those areas, which Karen has done, and we'll follow through on. So I don't know if there's any questions for Karen. Thank you very much, Karen, for the presentation.
You're welcome.
For being here this evening.
Jason?
Thank you, Karen. I have a couple questions. First, can we have different levels for the different groups? So could it be like level 1 on group A and level 2 or continuous improvement on B, or is it kind of bunched?
So they actually defined our school district level using like different state information. It's not actually just based on this. So I think they actually go into the coordinated program review already defining you as a level 1. So unless they came up with something really egregious in this, I believe that's right, Scott. I believe that they
I believe that is correct.
Okay.
because they already, when we started this process, they already had told us, you're going into it as a level 1 school. And so the process is a little different even in terms of what they look at.
Because I think that goes back to that big picture perspective of they look at discipline data, they look at
Graduation rate.
graduation rate, they look at parent complaints, how many people have come forward to the Department of Education with concerns about what's happening in special ed or civil rights or ELL services. So that, we actually send the state data consistently throughout the year on all kinds of information, student attendance. So they kind of review all that data that gets sent to DESI, and if there's no flags raised by any of that data, they place you in as a tier 1 or level 1 school.
Got it.
But if in this process, they found something that was more significant or really completely not implemented, I'm sure that would affect your rating later, so that could cycle you into a level 2 school.
All right, thank you. My other question, I'm trying to find the best way to word it, so I'll just do it as an example. Let's say when the state came in, they looked at a second grade file and they looked at the IEPs. Would they go, and let's say it was one of these areas where the transition statement wasn't written well, let's say. How far back do they go? How far back do they look at the data? So like when they come back and do group A in presumably 26, 27, that second grader is in 8th grade now. So could they get you again for writing a statement in second grade? Or is there like kind of or do you have to go back and fix any of the things that they said? I'm just trying to like make sure that you don't get nailed twice for the same thing.
Yeah, so sometimes as they're doing it, so they really have tried to make this a more helpful collaborative process. Kind of like we've done with the teacher evals, you hope that what you're doing is actually, helpful in terms of growth instead of like trying to find things that you're doing wrong. And you really do feel that when they work with you. So sometimes when they're working with you, they'll find something, and if they say, we see this, can you just fix this? They'll give you a chance to fix it. They do look for it kind of as patterns. If they see it just once, they might not do anything about it, but if they see it a couple times in a file, then they will. Although it's usually, it only takes about 2 before they'll like say something about it. But they're going back 2 to 3 years at this point. If they found something they wanted to ask for further back, they could certainly ask to see further back. But right now they look for, when they ask for the files to go through, they're looking for like the last 2 to 3 years.
That's perfect. All right, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions?
I don't have any
Andy?
questions. I just want to say thank you, Karen, for this update, this report, and for taking these 3 areas on, 3 areas of concern head-on to correct them. And I also want to thank you for, this is probably your last presentation to us. So I want to thank you for all your years of invaluable service to this committee and to the school district and the kids and the parents in the town of Carver. Thank you.
Thank you. It has been my pleasure, honestly. It's been great. It's a great group of families and staff. It's a great special ed department, I think that, and just in general, whole department of teachers that really are collaborative and a great admin team. I've really enjoyed working with everyone, so.
Congratulations on your retirement as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Yes,
We'll miss you, Karen.
Thanks.
yes. Thank you very much.
I will say that if anybody wants some riveting reading, I read the 2016 tiered focused monitoring report. It's riveting.
Excellent. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you very much, Karen.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thank you,
Karen. Good night.
too.
Thanks, Karen.
All right, DESE guidance update. So on May 27th, DESE released updated guidance for the rest of this school year and for the fall. So I'll give a summary overview of 6 key points from the new release of DESE guidance. Number 1, all current mitigation strategies will remain in place for the remainder of the school year, including current mask policies, social distancing policies, and close contact protocols. Number 2, DESE is not issuing any separate guidance for summer programs. It strongly encourages districts to follow the current guidelines in place for all in-person learning. The governor's mask order is still in place for inside of school buildings. Number 3, in the fall, all districts will be required to be in person, full-time, 5 days a week, with no required remote option. The big piece there being, that in essence, all students have to return to school. As Ruby mentioned, her plan, the districts are not required to offer remote programming. Number 4, all health and safety protocols will be lifted for the fall return. This includes all physical distancing requirements. What was a little concerning to me in terms of the guidance is my next statement, which is kind of counter to the statement I just made. So the next statement is, they did leave the door open for wearing masks. This is a quote from the guidance. DESE will collaborate with the Department of Public Health to issue any additional health and safety recommendations over the summer. Then they gave the specific example of wearing masks at the elementary school level. They did not provide any additional details about that. That's just a statement after number 4. So like I said, it's kind of counter, because the first one is all health and safety protocols are lifted. And then the next statement is, but we're going to meet over the summer and we could come out with recommendations. And then the example was, well, those recommendations could be wearing masks for elementary age students. And the other thing they left open, which is unreferenced in the document, is close contact protocols. So number 6 I had down is they do not reference close contacts at all, or close contact protocols at all anywhere in the document. My assumption would be, if all health and safety protocols are lifted, then we would not need to continue, and there's no social distancing, that we wouldn't be required to follow close contact protocols. So we would not be identifying students as close contacts, telling them that they have to stay out of school. That would be my interpretation of this document. Since this document has been released, there actually hasn't been any further update from the Department of Education. The commissioner has not had a meeting with superintendents. Typically does, so I'm a little surprised we haven't had a meeting with the commissioner since the release of this documentation. My assumption will be that we'll have a meeting in the next few weeks, and then we'll certainly have a meeting as we return to the fall. So I think the key point takeaways are we're going to keep everything in place for the end of school on June 18th. And then in the fall, right now, they're saying everything's lifted, but that might change over the summer. So that's kind of the summary of where we are. I don't know if there's any questions, or I may not be able to answer the questions because there's some lack of clarity there.
Right. I don't know who had their hand up first. Who wants to go first? Okay, Jen.
So in reading through this document, there are some things where it says, like, it refers to guidance and recommendations, and then there are others where it says, it requires. So I found myself a little confused, and I think it's confusing to read on what of this are we mandated to follow versus what is this? Is there flexibility that we could choose to accept the guidance or not accept? Like, do you have any clarification on?
I do not, but I can give you my opinion.
Okay.
My opinion is all the guidance is in place at the end of the school year. The governor's mask order has not been dropped. Masks are required through the end of the school year. The governor's mask order hasn't been dropped. They're not required. They're required for the summer. Otherwise, they do say you're strongly encouraged to follow other guidelines for the summer. What strongly encouraged, in my argument, is just that, strongly encouraged. Means you could choose not to. But really, what other guidelines would we be following? I mean, our summer programming is going to be small enough that we're going to maintain social distancing of 3 feet. I don't think we're going to have a wholesale restructure of our classrooms in terms of bringing back all of our tables and that sort of stuff. We're not offering lunch in our summer program, so we don't have to redo the cafeteria. So I really think for the summer, the impact is really minimal. I think the summer question is really about masks. I think that's the question that's still open-ended on the summer. And I would say right now, my understanding is the governor's mask order has not been rescinded for school buildings, public transit, airplanes, and that otherwise the amount of programming we're going to have in the summer, the impacts are really minimal. Where the impact will be much more significant is in the fall, because the game changer for us is the cafeteria. So my reading of this is that all the rules are gone in the cafeteria, and you can go back to full-size cafeteria, back to the round tables, back to having everybody have lunch, so that we can go back to the traditional schedule at the middle high school, which we were committed to doing anyhow, but not having students all over the place to have lunch, not following the close contact protocol, like I said, and that's unclear here. Not following the close contact protocol, I think would be a huge piece, so that we're not making phone calls and saying you need to stay out of school 10 days because you've been identified as a close contact. I think those huge changes will come in the fall. Now, the interesting part on that is, you just asked about the summer. The language does say strongly encourages you to follow all the current guidelines that are in place. So that would strongly encourage us to follow the close contact protocol. So if we did have a positive case in summer school, that we would follow the protocols as stated, and which for us right now is we're still doing. We haven't had to do it in, knock on wood, in a month, 3 weeks or a month, but it's, that you would have to stay out of school if you've identified as close contact because you're within more than 3 feet at your desk, 6 feet outside, and then you'd have to do close contact for 10 days and quarantine and follow all those protocols. So what I take away as their recommendation is really keep everything the way it currently is through summer programming, but then in the fall, all restrictions are removed. And they're going to get back to us on whether or not they're going to require masks at the elementary school level. That's my takeaway from this document, is this now through summer, we're staying the way we are. Fall, we're pulling back the curtain and returning to pretty normal school. And my biggest concern is, and I know that obviously a lot of discussion has been around the mask issue, my biggest concern is, I'll give you my personal opinion. I don't think it was a great approach to say all protocols are lifted, but we might give some guidance over the summer that says masks for elementary school students. I wish they had just kind of said the mask issue is undefined at this time, and the governor's order is still in place, and that's where we are. Because I think it would be very difficult on the community as a whole to hear me say tonight, no masks in the fall, but we might have masks in the fall. And then, I think we'll have to cross that when we come to it in August, when we see what they come up with for the fall return.
All set? Okay, Jason?
To continue on this contradictory language, there's a word in here that's thrown me off, and I hate to wordsmith it, but I think it's important for people we need just a declarative statement here, I think, on this. It's number 3. In the fall, all districts will be required to be in person, full-time, 5 days a week with no required remote option. The phrase no required remote option means that there's an option to go remote. It's just not required.
So my argument to that would be, there's always been options for remote programming. So for example, we run an alternative high school program. Pre-COVID, we ran an alternative high school program. In that alternative high school program, students did mixed, really a hybrid model. They were coming in person, getting some in-person instruction, but a lot of their instruction was through actually Edgenuity. Remember, we had said last year when we got into the Edgenuity discussion that Edgenuity is a platform we're already currently using for some students. But really, in my mind, and my understanding from talking to the commissioner, is that it's no longer parent choice to be remote. So if the district and a parent come to an agreement that that is the best for that student, we can certainly offer remote options. We've had students for many years now, in tutoring situations, in individual circumstances, we've offered remote programming for students. So my understanding, the commissioner has talked about this, that that's the distinction now, is it's no longer parent choice. The parent can't say, my student's going to be remote. The parent has to work with the district, come to an agreement that that is the best programming to offer for that individual student.
That's just, I think, just community-wise what because if you read that, it can be interpreted a few different ways, but that's kind of the crux of it all, so, thanks.
And we'll continue to have those individual conversations with families as we have since remote options has been an option, as a kind of mixed approach.
Colleen, question?
I mean, I know you mentioned the, and this probably goes without saying, I know you mentioned the lunchroom, there would be no more social distancing, but, I mean, the classrooms would go back to normal. You might maybe not bring the tables back, but, I mean, there would be no 3 feet rule.
Correct. So there'll be no more 3 feet rule in the fall. And we would have the option to bring the tables back into the classrooms in K1 and 2. And we'd have the option to bring the table. We had a lot of math classrooms. I don't know if I want to say all of them. The majority of our math classes at the middle high school were table-based, and they had to go to desk-based. So we had a lot of lab tables in our science classrooms, and we didn't have. So there was a lot of classes at the middle high school where there weren't desks, where there were tables, and they obviously for this year all went to desks. But next year, under the guidance, my understanding with everything being lifted, is that through individual choice of the teacher and the administration, they'll be able to return to lab tables and tables in whatever classrooms decide to have tables. And same with the cafeterias.
So, and this is probably getting a little off topic, but I'm just curious. So we have, when we had to purchase desks to replace tables and things, all that stuff is still in storage?
We did not get rid of anything.
Okay.
So we still have that all stored in different places. So yes, we have the ability to return to what we had previously. And then we're gonna have to store all those desks.
Right, well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, we want to get rid of them in case we ever need them
we have
again.
to find a place to store all those desks.
We need to find some long-term storage solutions.
We have some storage solutions already available for us. We're just waiting to pull the trigger on it.
Okay, great,
Yep, so yeah, we have the supplies to do either.
excellent.
Annie, do you have anything?
Yeah, well, it was just my own personal take on this. I think with the COVID numbers being as low as they are, and with the state, the guidance for everything else and the masks being dropped almost everywhere else, I don't think it's fair for them to keep the masks on the school kids for the rest of the year, which is only a short time. But I'm also concerned about the kids going into summer programming, being there, if they're in a hot environment, now trying to learn in a hot environment with a mask on.
Just as a point of clarity, the elementary school doesn't have air conditioning, but has conditioned air.
Yeah.
So it's dehumidified, it's a dehumidification system. That building generally stays fairly cool. I think the warmest classroom in that building, I didn't go to classroom, I didn't take temperature in every classroom, but there was one classroom that was concerned it was warm today. It was 79 in that classroom. Most of the building was probably at 72, 73, 74, and that's what it will be all summer. And it's dehumidified, it's not humid. So when you're in that building,
There's not going to be anything at the high school, middle high school?
the middle high school we run all of our programs in the majority of our programs in air-conditioned rooms.
Okay.
About 1/3 of the middle high school is air-conditioned.
Right.
So all the interior rooms that don't have windows have air conditioning. So can I say that there'll be no student in a room that doesn't have air conditioning? I can't make that 100% promise. Sitting here this evening, I got to look at each room that's being utilized for the summer programming. But the majority of classrooms will be in an air-conditioned space or in the elementary school.
Yeah, thank you for clarification. But just,
Possible for a public comment again? No.
Nope.
so, if I just go on for a second.
Yep, absolutely.
Wait 2 weeks after.
So, my only thought of it is that if whatever guidance comes down in the summer, or for the summer, we've followed all the guidance through the last year and a half that has come down from the state and the federal government. We've listened to everything the CDC has said, and we've, with the administration, jumping through hoops to do it, and all the staff and everything, and we've done all that. But we also have the power to not do that and to make choices for our own community. All right, and as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not trying to get political on this, but the people making the choices for the recommendations from the CDC come from the federal government. And as from reports that have come out lately, they've been flawed and wrong decisions have been made.
Point of order.
Excuse me.
I'm allowed to say point of order.
Okay.
Yes.
This is turning to bias and politics.
Well, that's why I just made a caveat about it.
But-
These decisions come down from the federal government, okay? And the CDC brings it up as recommendations that we're supposed to follow.
Right.
So that was my only point, is that, these things have been flawed by the person's own admission.
So if I could just respond, I'm going to give
Yes.
you my recommendation.
Please do.
The summer programming, everything's lifted in the fall, except for masks, maybe at the elementary school, which we don't have an answer on yet. And so we shouldn't be discussing next fall elementary masks because we don't have an answer on that. Right now, the answer is there's no masks. If you read the guidance, it says all health and safety protocols are lifted. But, I know I keep saying that, we have to go to that but, there's a but. The but is they may come out with requirements in August that say there have to be masks at the elementary school. And I would think the committee would deal with that when that guidance came out in August.
Right.
Okay? In terms of the summer program, right now, the governor's order still requires masks in public school buildings. And when that is lifted, then my recommendation is we would remove the masks. If that hasn't been lifted, then I would think we'd maintain the masks. So that would be my recommendation that we do for our current program.
Andy?
Can I just say one more thing? For anybody watching at home, we're wearing the masks here tonight just in solidarity for our staff members and our students that are required to wear it as well. So we're doing it as a sign of support, and that's why we're wearing these tonight. So just if anybody was asking, wondering about that. Thank you, Stephanie.
Absolutely. I'm sure if there's any change in this guidance between now and when the summer programming occurs.
So as of right now, DESE says they are not
Can we know
issuing
further?
any summer guidance. So this document they put out said nothing new is coming out for the summer. There will be no more DESE releases. So I think the trigger point would be if the governor came out with a statement saying that masks are no longer required in public school buildings for the summer programming.
So if that were to happen,
Then we take masks off.
would we
We'd
need,
follow the governor's order.
right, but we,
I don't feel like, my opinion, you're 100% you, I don't feel like there'd have to be a school committee meeting. I don't think we would just.
okay,
The governor made that statement, the next day we'd make a statement that there's no mask required. And I do think we have followed the guidance throughout the school year that's been issued. And ultimately, the governor's order is the governor's order. I don't know if the school committee can challenge that. We're getting into a whole different discussion about what's the legal rights of the school committee to challenge the governor's order. And I don't know if that's necessary for the summer programming. The summer program is a small number of students, and that's my opinion, but that's kind of that's kind of an update of where things stand. And I would think we look at the positive, which the positive is the fall is all restrictions are lifted. That's a really positive statement. We should be excited about that. That in the fall, all restrictions are lifted. And hopefully it will stay that way. Hopefully it will stay all restrictions are lifted continuously. I think you all know this, I didn't address it yet. I think they specifically talked about masks at elementary school because of vaccination. Clearly, most secondary schools, we're a little bit unusual that we have a 6 through 12 secondary school across the state. Well, there are some 6 through 12, but most are either 7 through 12, 8 through 12, that most of your secondary schools are going to have the opportunity to get the vaccine. Whether they do or they don't, it's going to be their choice, but they have the option to. And I think that's why I think they are really leaning towards that there won't be masks at the secondary level. And right now, the guidance says it won't be masked at the elementary level, except, I know I'm getting repetitive, except for that one big but statement they put in there of, we're going to meet over the summer and make a determination.
Right.
It's probably why they should have just stopped at number 2 and not even addressed the fall.
I do think the guidance here is a little less clear than it's been. And it's left it more open. And I don't think it was a great approach. I think a better approach would have been said, we haven't made a decision on the mask issue. Better than saying, no, all health and safety, because it says, this is, I'm not reading this word from word, I'm not making, this isn't my interpretation of it.
Right.
The word for it is all health and safety protocols will be lifted. That's word for word from the guidance. So in my mind, that means no masks. But then they threw in that but statement afterwards. I just don't think that's a great approach.
Agreed.
But we can't do anything about that approach. So we have to go with the positive statement of all health and safety protocols will be lifted for the fall. And so we have different information, which probably wouldn't be until July or August.
I have a question. In terms of the summer programming and the locations, when will all of those details be finalized as to where students will be in the buildings?
Next couple of weeks.
So are we meeting in July, not meeting in July?
Meeting July 19th, but the program would have started.
It was started by then, okay. So clearly, if there are any issues that are found, action would be taken to address those issues if there's a hot classroom or some of the concerns that
Yes.
arise. I just want people at home to know that,
We'll
yeah, I just
do
want
everything
people,
we can to make this the best situation possible.
yeah, I just want people at home to understand that even though, we may not have a meeting specifically dealing with this, that, staff and throughout the building and administration will be keeping an eye on the health and safety of everyone while they're in our district, making sure that, everyone is being taken care of in the best way possible.
The other
So,
thing to remember about the summer programming is it's a shortened day. It's not a 6-hour school day. No one's in school for 6 hours. Most of the programs run 3 hours, some run 2. It's totally different than, it's support. It's extra support throughout the summer, but it's not the same as the full-time school day that we're in currently.
right, thank you. Anyone else? Sorry, no?
I'm hoping that for our July meeting, there may even be more information. It's just, for me, I'm stuck on the inherent contradiction of, okay, we can go back to normal elementary lunches, but then the kids might need to wear masks when they're in the classroom, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. If they're concerned that it's an unvaccinated population, then we should be keeping
Social distancing during lunch?
And they may, because if you
Yep.
read the guidance, they give that as one example.
Right,
I think it's very interesting that they gave that example.
right.
But they didn't give any other examples.
Yeah.
The guidance doesn't have 5 things that could happen. But they could come back and say at the elementary level, we're going to keep the 3 feet. We're going to say 6 feet in lunch with no masks. It's possible that they keep all those things in place at elementary. Those are possibilities. They didn't reference any of those things.
Right.
And I think they're going to look to see how the summer goes too. So I hate to be a pessimist. I don't know if we'll know anything different on July 19th.
Right.
My sense is maybe this would be guidance that would come out in August, but I could be wrong about that. Because ultimately, there's going to be some pressure from superintendents and school committees in terms of planning, because it makes a big difference. As we've talked about throughout the year, lunch is such a huge impact. So it makes a big difference if there's different lunch protocols and guidance in terms of our planning and preparation. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll know by when we meet in the middle of July what the different guidance will be.
Well, if there's an update by then, you would bring it to us and discuss it anyway.
Yeah, well, you
right, at that
definitely do
meeting.
that.
So,
Okay,
just so people at home know that this will be something that will be discussed continuously as needed, as changes arise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. So now looking to the future.
All right, for class of 2021 future plans. So I just wanted to, give the community a kind of a brief update, in terms of, we had graduation this past weekend on Sunday. It was a little warm, but it was a wonderful ceremony. So just as we have traditionally over the last couple of years, we just kind of showed the school committee and the community, the schools in which students were accepted. So this isn't necessarily all the school students who are attending, This is just a list of all the schools our students were accepted in from the graduating class of 2021. In terms of 4-year private, 2-year private, 4-year public, 2-year public, trade schools, military. And then in the school, in your background, I actually did give you an individual breakdown of where students will be attending. And I'll just give you the overall summary on that data. So we have 61.5% will be attending a 4-year college, public or private college university. 19.3% are going to be going to a 2-year school, so about 81% of our students will be doing some sort of 2 or 4-year school. We have 7.3% will be attending a trade school, 8.3% joining the workforce, and 1% will be joining the military. So that's our overall summary on the graduating class of 2021. And even though it was warm on Sunday yesterday, I think people were really excited about graduation, and the event really went really well. So very quick, I don't know if there's any questions about that or thoughts.
Anyone have any questions?
Just
Yep,
good-
yes.
Just good luck.
Yeah,
Yes.
Good luck to them all.
Absolutely, good luck.
All right, we ready to move on?
Yes, please.
So our next agenda item is the memorandum of agreement with our custodial unit. So the custodians have ratified the MOA that we've negotiated with them, the subcommittee. So the key points of the agreement is actually adding June 19th as a holiday, because that is now a state holiday, and our custodians obviously working year-round, that gets added on as a holiday. Currently in their salary schedule, 1 step equals 2 years of employment. So we actually came to an agreement with them to have 1 step equal 1 year of employment. And then the key financial terms of the agreement was for FY22, a 1.5% raise plus a one-time stipend of $250. For FY23, a 1.75% raise plus a one-time stipend of $250. And FY24, a 1.75% increase with a one-time stipend of $250. And then actually also an additional $250 stipend to be paid prior to the end of this year for FY21. We changed their unused personal days. Right now, if they don't use a personal day, they get a payment of $50. We increased that to $100. And starting in FY23, we increased longevity. So we added $50 for those who've completed 5 through 9 years of service, 10 to 14 years of service, $100. So they went from from $300 to $400. 15 through 19 years of service went from $400 to $500, so an additional $100. And 20 plus years of service went from $550 to $750, an increase of $200. And that doesn't start next fiscal year, but the year after, FY23. Our negotiating subcommittee came to this tentative agreement with the custodial unit, and my recommendation would be that the committee would support this agreement here this evening.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we ratify the MOA with the custodians as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Nope. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Just want to say thank you to the bargaining unit. Thank you to our members and the administration for putting this together. So,
You were on the bargaining unit, you were on the negotiating team, right?
Correct, it was Jason
Jason
and
and-
Oh, Jason,
I
you.
negotiated
Yep.
that contract and, yeah.
so
Good job.
thank you for your work.
School committee protocols. So our next 2 items, I think, we just wanted to take the approach as a committee, and the thought was to kind of, with having a new member and after an election, to kind of have a restatement of the goals and the protocols and the agreements that we as committee members have. So we have 2 items. We have the school committee protocols, and then we have a policy item, BBAA, the school committee member authority. So the school committee protocols first. Someone's giving us feedback.
Merritt's here.
Sorry, man, it's okay. So if it's okay with everybody, I'll just read through the school committee protocols, then we'll open it up for discussion.
Scott, can you make that a little bit bigger?
I can make it a little bigger.
Thank
I
you.
can.
Got my glasses today. Thank you.
Is it a little bigger than that?
That's great.
See if this is too big. So school committee protocols. Now these protocols were actually first established when I actually became superintendent. So when I took over the role of superintendent 5 years ago, the school committee met in a work session with actually a facilitator from the Mass Association of School Committees, and we've developed these protocols, and then we've kind of reaffirmed them on a regular basis. So for the purpose of enhancing teamwork among members of the school committee and between our school committee and the administration, we, the members of the school committee, do hereby commit ourselves to the following operating protocols. Number one, the school committee will represent the needs and interests of all children in the district. Number two, the school committee will help establish the vision, create policies, and assure accountability. The superintendent will manage the schools and staff. The school committee will consider best practices, public input, and financial impacts of their decision-making. The school committee and the superintendent will facilitate goal setting for the district. The school committee will work towards continuous improvement in teaching and learning by clearly defining district goals, developing policies, and promoting achievement of all students. The school committee will conduct business through a set agenda. Emerging items will be addressed in subsequent meetings through agenda items. The school committee will channel requests for information through the superintendent and the school committee chair rather than directly to staff. The superintendent will ensure that each member has equal access to information. School committee members will work together to clarify and restate discussions in order to strive for full understanding. School committee members will recognize the single official voice of the board. The school committee will base our decisions on facts, vote our conviction, avoid bias, and uphold and support decisions of the majority of the committee once a decision is made. The school committee will maintain trust and mutual respect between and among committee members, the superintendent, and the administration by treating everyone with dignity, respect, even in times of disagreement. And last one, the school committee recognizes the importance of working collaboratively with town officials to improve our school.
Would someone like to make a motion to reaffirm the protocols?
I'll make a motion to reaffirm the school committee protocols as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? No? Oh, Jason?
When we reaffirm these, we need to follow them. And when I try to make points of order, it's because they weren't being followed. So we're not just doing it as a boilerplate saying, hey, we're doing this to look good. It's doing it because it's what we're supposed to do. So that's it. I just want to make sure that, because I don't want to have to sit here and do that each meeting just to say, hey, I don't think that we're following this. Like, that's it. That's all I had to say.
No, can I respond to that for a second? Jason, I never said I had a problem with your point of order. I just didn't think you were right, okay? Because the thing I was speaking about was pertinent to this topic. All right?
I wasn't even allowed to say my point of order because I was immediately interjected. So if we follow procedure, when I say point of order, it stops, it goes to the chair to make that determination. That didn't even happen. Because this whole process that we go through, everything we do, everything that I've done, and in my opinion, I think I followed this, have been by protocols, facts, and everything. I try to keep every personal thing out of it as much as I can. And when we don't follow those procedures, and it just turns into just saying whatever we want, that's when I have a big problem. So if we need to review of protocols, of points of order, and other things like that, then maybe we should do that too. But we just need to follow the process. And and I think you guys will all agree, I'm always been about process in here, 100% of the time. And when we can just willy-nilly just do whatever we want and say whatever we want, that's when I have a big problem.
I apologize for cutting you off back then.
I apologize for not following the point of order properly and interjecting as well. So, does anyone else have anything to add? Okay. All those in support of affirming the school committee protocols? Aye. That's unanimous.
In the same vein, the school committee policy of school committee member authority, I'll make it a little bigger.
Thank you.
And again, if it's okay, I'll just read it out loud to everybody.
Thank you.
Because all powers of the school committee derived from state laws are granted in terms of action as a group, members of the school committee have authority only when acting as a committee legally in session. The school committee will not be bound in any way by any statement or action on the part of an individual member, except when such statement or action is the result of specific instructions of the committee. No member of the committee, by virtue of his office, will exercise any administrative responsibilities with respect to the schools or command the services of any school employee. The school committee will function as a body, and all policy decisions and other matters as required by law will be settled by an official vote of the committee sitting in formal session. Duties. The duties and obligations of the individual committee member may be enumerated as follows. To become familiar with the general laws of the Commonwealth related to education and school committee operations, regulations of the Massachusetts Board of Education, policies and procedures of the school committee and school department. Number 2, to keep abreast of new laws and latest trends in education. Number 3, to have a general knowledge of the goals, objectives, and programs of the town's public schools. Number 4, to work effectively with other committee members without trying either to dominate the committee or neglect his, if I should say, / her share of the work. Number 5, to respect the privileged communication that exists in executive sessions by maintaining strict confidentiality on matters discussed in these sessions, except which becomes part of the public record once it has been approved for release. That's it. I'll check.
Thank you.
To
Oh, no,
vote
sorry.
and act in committee impartially for the good of the students. Number 7, to accept the will of the majority vote in all cases. And remember that he is one of a team and must abide by and carry out all committee decisions once they are made. To represent the committee and the schools to the public in a way that promotes interest and support. To refer questions and complaints to the superintendent. And finally, to comply with and accept the code of ethics for school committee members.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to reaffirm the school committee member authority policy?
I'll make a motion to affirm policy BBAA of school committee member authority as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Nope. Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. It's unanimous.
Okay, so moving on to our next agenda item. Request to recycle French books. Tom McLean, Foreign Language Department Chair, has requested permission to dispose of 117 French books and 89 French workbooks that are over 20 years old and are no longer relevant to the terms, no longer relevant in terms of the French curriculum. There is no secondary market for these texts, so I would support the recommendation to recycle this old set of French textbooks and workbooks.
Okay, someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to recycle the antiquated French textbooks and workbooks.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion?
I think someone always brings up, can the public get these be offered to the public for a certain time?
They want them. So,
What's the time frame for disposing of them?
I mean, obviously, I think they're gonna actually want to dispose of them
The end of the
before
year?
in the summer. I mean, so we could put something out to the community to say, do you really want these French book textbooks? We generally don't get taken up on that, but if the committee wants me to do that, we can put something
I
out.
think Jason's mentioned that before too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know, somebody might want to take up French and
I mean-
somebody for a free guide.
To be fair, that was math, and
Math book.
I mean,
yeah.
not to disparage French as a subject. I mean, I took it for 4 years myself, but I mean, 20-year-old French books. I mean, math really doesn't change, but the French curriculum. But I don't care either
I
way.
mean, I've never heard of any new French being offered. You know, the new French.
Some of the curriculum embedded within might be.
Maybe.
but the
Yeah, you know, it's
words-
like, I'm sure it has the word cassette
Bonjour is
and
still the bad.
and recorder, but obviously in terms of the key phrases you'd use, I'm sure they're still there.
I don't know
We
what
could certainly offer it up.
I just don't know what the role of the committee is. It's just my suggestion. We'll leave it
I
out there
think
for a
it'd be nice to see if anybody wanted.
few weeks or something, maybe, or something.
We will make some sort of notification that these books are available for anybody who wants them.
Right.
Besides saying it tonight in the meeting, that books are open.
Right.
And then next week or two, if you want a French book, textbook, contact the middle high school.
Excellent.
They paid for them, why not?
Okay, so all those in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
That brings us to
budget transfers.
Ron.
Ron, you want me to just pull up the line by line or the?
Just a line by line is fine, yeah. If you want to start on the general, it'd be great. Hi, everyone. So I'll be brief with your time this evening. You have tonight for your warrants, May 27th payroll, as well as June 3rd, June 10th expenses. So at the end of the evening, please be sure to sign off on the warrants. Thank you for that. Your FY21 budget update and transfers. The first item I just want to bring to your attention is on the general budget. So if you go to the general line 226, we talked about this at the last meeting, and that's the CARES reimbursement from Plymouth County. So that's federal money coming through the county, eventually coming through the town of Carver. Gosh, for the past several months, even back into the fall, what the district had done, and a lot of districts around us had done, is taken all of these PPE, masks, and cleaning equipment and so on, and put it in their budgets, in their general ledger, essentially. And they carried a negative balance waiting for Plymouth County to do the reimbursement. Plymouth County's been great, but they've been a little bit on the slow side because everyone's trying to get reimbursement. The end of the fiscal year is really upon us, so we've been working with the town to essentially transfer the monies out of our accounts, out of the school department's accounts, to some town accounts that have been created just for CARES. So while all the reimbursement money is not in yet from Plymouth County to our municipality, it allows us to take all of these expenses that have been sitting as a negative on our general ledger and move them over to town accounts, awaiting for those funds to arrive. Because at the end of the fiscal year, unlike the town, us as a school department can't hold a negative balance, right? We've got to even out all of our books, whereas the town can await for the Plymouth County reimbursement to occur. Anyway, so we talked briefly about that at our last meeting. We had $345,233.63. We went through the rest of the costs dating all the way back to the beginning of the school year. So masks and PPE and sanitizer and all the things that the school district purchased to get through the pandemic. An additional $25,270.79 has been taken from what was extraordinary maintenance, is now on the town accounts for CARES, for a total of $370,054.96. You don't see that on your transfers because it's not an inter-line transfer for the school department. It simply comes off our books as what used to be a negative account for extraordinary maintenance and will now sit on the town's CARES reimbursement accounts, awaiting Plymouth County's monies to be reimbursed in the coming months, perhaps even into the fall. That's probably the biggest item you have there. Along those same lines, if you take a look at your transfers, you can see district-wide instructional software services. This is like this firewall software that we use for the Chromebooks. Again, it's actually for the whole district as well, related to COVID and can be expensed off to CARES. We've put that through as a request, and we're waiting to do the same thing with those funds as well. So we want to make the purchase and then address those costs to CARES reimbursement through Plymouth County. As this fiscal year is coming to a close, we'll likely do the same thing in the next couple of weeks, move those costs from, in this case, district-wide instructional software services onto the town CARES reimbursement lines, await for Plymouth County's reimbursement in the next couple of months to be determined. Your last few transfers, I think are relevant for you, and you've got them all there in front of you, but I'll just give you a few major highlights. We talked when we were finishing out FY22 that in order to help balance FY22's budget, we would do a prepay of collaboratives. State regulations allow for municipalities and school departments to do a prepay of collaboratives, as well as 3 months, if necessary, of private special education out-of-district costs. Anyway, you see there the prepay of collaboratives to help balance the FY22 budget, which was part of the plan that the school committee voted back in February with the FY22 budget. You also see a transfer request for copier equipment. That's just an uptick in copies, return of students to full-time. And then district-wide special education home instruction. We had a kiddo who needed additional services at home, and so we took care of those services that were beyond the budget. You've got the full budget in front of you, of course, as well as all of the smaller requests that you see there, and I'll certainly answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions?
I do.
Okay, Andy?
Scott, can you go back to the previous page, please? I think item 2, line 226 or 229. Let me find it exactly. Hold on.
226.
I was looking at,
Extraordinary maintenance.
218. Building maintenance repairs. So you still have a balance of 21,000 there. Is that going to be used for summer, cleaning, polishing, repairs?
It won't be used for the FY22, so starting in July 1, it won't be used. We do have some projects on a couple of the building maintenance and repairs lines that will go through in June, but we'll expect to have some balances there just because our maintenance and operations team has been really focused this year on COVID.
So it's not going to be used by July 1st?
Some of that funding will be used up through June 30th, but I don't expect to see the entire balance used out.
Okay. That's all I had. I was just curious about that.
For sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve the budget transfers?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget transfers as presented.
Second? Oh.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous. So that brings us to reports from the school committee. Anyone have anything they'd like to say? Jen?
So we find ourselves here at the last meeting during the active school year with 9 school days left. And it's coming to a rapid end after what has felt like a really long year. I was honored to attend the graduation ceremonies yesterday, and we got to see our latest group of students move off into the world, and I was really proud of all of those students. But the thing that touched me most was in the multiple speeches, I heard students resoundingly express how loved and cared for they felt by the overall school community, and many of them shared, just sentiments. I heard students as they were walking off the stage look towards the teachers that were sitting next to me going, "Thank you, can you believe I did it?" And a teacher going, "Of course, I always believed in you." And it was just a wonderful reminder, not that we ever forget, but we have an amazing school community, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. But all of our staff and teachers, students, everybody, families have worked so hard, not only this year, but continuously. And I don't know, I guess I just wanted to say thank you again. I feel like I say it all the time, but I don't think it can be said enough. And so as we go into our last 9 days of the school year, I just hope that everyone knows that throughout the challenges that we've been faced with, that the appreciation has never been unwavered, and we really are lucky to have the community that we have here in Carver, and I mean that. From Superintendent Neve down to our custodians, from our bus drivers to our lunchrooms to our all of our education professionals in the school, teachers, ESPs, monitors, specialists. I mean, we, administration, everybody, secretaries. Like, we have a community that is very different from others even around us. And so I just want to end this last meeting of the official school year on that high note of just saying thank you to everybody for everything they've done. And let's enjoy these last 9 days. We heard about Spirit Week at the high school, but we have Kindness Week going on at the elementary school this week. And, you know, I brought my daughter to a middle school tour today, and she had her crazy socks still on because she didn't want to take them off because it was crazy sock day today, so you wore your crazy socks to show kindness. Tomorrow's the team day, so, you know, elementary kids, make sure you wear your team sports to show team spirit and collaboration. And so I think it's really exciting. We have field days coming up finally. We get field day this year again. So many things to look forward to for these last 9 days. So let's finish the school year strong. Go Carver Coyotes, go Carver Crusaders, go team.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Andy? Colleen?
Go ahead, Colleen.
You know, Jen has such a way with words. I also want to congratulate the graduating class of 2021. I appreciate it's been a difficult year and you made it. You're going places. Also, I'm very excited about field day, and they invited the parents to attend. I can remember it being such a fun thing for me when I was young at the Governor John Carver. Also, you know, I'm just really hopeful that we will keep going in the right direction to get back to normal, and that evaluations and resources are available to our students who may need them to get caught up or back on track, and that, you know, I'm hopeful with the way everything is going, and I'm looking forward to the future, and I hope everyone has a wonderful summer.
Excellent, thank you. Andy?
Okay. Well, I'll just say congratulations to all of our graduates from yesterday. Sorry I couldn't be there with you for your graduation. I heard it was great. I also want to congratulate all the rest of our students who are not graduating, but they're going to move on to another school year next year. And I'm congratulating you for getting on to the summer, and that's always fun. I will say this one thing. After the last year and a half we've been through, and this is our last last meeting of the Carver School Committee in this school year, I hope the era of COVID is over for us for the summer in September, and we don't have to deal with this stuff again. So that being said, have a great summer, everybody, and thank you. And I'm proud of you. That's it.
You're all set. I also echo everyone's sentiments about graduation. Yesterday was warm for everyone, but it was really wonderful to experience, along with convocation, as that was rained out Friday night. So it was great to see so many students rewarded for their hard work and for their efforts, especially over this year. Clearly, they are ready to take on unforeseen challenges and unknown adversity. I am also very proud of our district, of how everyone has really gone above and beyond this year. Not that they don't prior to COVID, they certainly did. But this year, I really think that our district did so many things beyond what we could have hoped for, given that there were so many unknowns and so many extra hours put in by so many staff, and I'm sure by the students, and I know that there were so many challenges to overcome. I'm really proud of how our community came together to support students, and how people within the district, the staff, came together to support one another. So I also just want to say thank you to everyone for their efforts. I'd like to say thank you to my fellow committee members. We have been meeting every 2 weeks for the longest time, that it will soon be coming to an end. But I appreciate all the time and effort that everyone has put in, because it has been a lot of hours. And I know that we're all very passionate and feel very strongly about our roles. And I just wanted to say thank you for your efforts. And one other community thing I just want to quickly mention. The Carver Council on Aging is having an open house coming up on June 19th. There'll be more information going out within the community. They had some refurbishments done, so there were some new improvements. So I just want to encourage people that if you've never been to the Carver Council on Aging in Carver, it's Saturday, June 19th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. There's going to be raffles. You'll get a chance to meet staff. They're having a door prize. They're giving away a pair of Red Sox tickets. So if people have some time, it's a great place to check out. All the resources are free for the community members. They have programming, Meals on the Move, GATRA services, so those types of things that can just further serve some members of our school district. So I just wanted to mention that. There's a lot of great work being done there as well. So with that, oh, sorry.
What's the address?
Oh, sorry. It is, oh, they didn't put it on here. It's on Lakeview Street, the corner of, 48 Lakeview Street in South Carver. So there is more information on the town website. The Council on Aging does have a page, but thank you for mentioning the address. That can be helpful, certainly. So, and with that, have a great summer, everyone.
Stephanie, I know
Yes.
I don't generally speak during reports from the school committee, but if you indulge me for a minute,
Absolutely.
It's similar vein to everybody. I just want to thank really the community. I know that at times, there's been a lot of tough decisions that have had to be made this year, whether, as we talked about this earlier, the full in-person return versus the hybrid model, versus when are we going to do the full, when are all those things going to happen? And there was a lot of tough discussions, and a lot of people were very passionate about all those things. But overall, my interactions with the community, I think the committee's interactions with the committee and the administration, the teachers, was really positive. People may not have always agreed with the decisions that were being made. They may have felt passionately in a different direction. But overall, I felt the discussion was in a positive nature and in the right light, I guess. So I want to thank the community for that in terms of supporting all of us through these difficult times. I want to thank the students. Because no one mentioned the students. The students have been great this year. They've just been outstanding. And I know they faced a lot of challenges. And we've just had very, very little issues with students not following any of the protocols, whatever the protocol happens to be. I think they wanted to be back in school. I think they were excited about being back in school. And the students have just been great in terms of great to work with. They're always great to work with, but they've responded to the adversity and the challenges they faced this year tremendously. And as has the staff. The staff has really been outstanding in terms of stepping up. And as I said, I'm getting a little repetitive to what everybody else said, but I just wanted to take a second to thank those three core constituents of the community, our students and the staff, for getting us through this challenging year.
Absolutely. And like Andy said, may this be one and done, right? May this become a distant memory.
That'd be good.
Okay, and with that brings us to the end of our meeting. So I would entertain a motion for executive session.
I'll make a motion that we move to executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining for union and non-union personnel, and to not return to open session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote. Jason?
Aye.
Andy?
Andy Cotterelli, aye.
Jen?
Jen Pratt, aye.
Colleen?
Colleen Zanuski, aye.
Stephanie Clarity, aye. 9:22.
22.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank